Hey everybody, this is Hinterland, and this is another video update for my Battle Tank Centennial build series. I've enjoyed this series so much that I had another tank I picked up a while back, and then recently I picked up the one on the left there, the Tadpole. So I'm going to be doing a lengthened build series after this one. I'm going to build two more and make it part of my 100 year celebration of the use of tank in warfare. The one on the right here, as you can see, is the Mark I female. It's got that's a better picture of what kind of what the one I'm building is. It's the version I'm building, except mine does not have the grenade net on the top. The grenade net, I can't remember if it's called something different. It's grenade screen. It's just kind of an A-frame, like you can see, it's a steel A-frame uh, uh, type thing you just put on there, and then um, for the grenades to roll off, so it wouldn't pierce the armor on top, because the armor on top was fairly thin. There's a lot of parts in this where the armor was pretty thin. And then the Tadpole, we'll cover that later. The Tadpole, as you can see, is a much longer track line, and that was due to the German defenses. When they realized that the British had built a tank that could cover their trenches and drive right over them, they started making wider trenches. So they came out with the Tadpole to compensate that. So anyway, on to the Mark I male that I'm building. We're just about done. I'm just about done here with assembly. I've still got the steerage wheels. Here's the frame for what the steerage wheels are going to attach. You can see the axle there on the left side, and then the part on the right side fits on the back of the tank. Here is a piece. There's a piston in there, and from what I can read about it, it's a hydraulic piston that'll fit on the back of the tank. Fits in the back of the tank like that. And then these two arms that come down, that's what raised and lowered the wheels. Now I got a wheel cut out of the sprue here, so you can see that how big this was. I don't have a 135 scale figure right now to put there, but this tank measured about 8.5 feet high, roughly, and so that wheel I'm looking at is probably at least 5.5, if not 6 feet in diameter. Perhaps it was a little bigger. I know that if they had a guy walking next to it, it's just about as tall as the soldier. So that's how big these wheels were that they used. Here's all the springs. There's 8 on each side with a total of 16 springs. And anyway, that's them. Sorry, or too early in the morning or late in the afternoon for me. Anyway, the sponson, got it pretty much done. This one went together, had a little different problem with it. I had to put a little white piece of styrene in there to boost it up a little bit. It just seemed like the flange, when you fit these down on the flanges, they're not fitting into the opening of the sponson wall like they should. I'm not saying it's a fit issue. Like I said, this is like building a house of cards, and there might be somewhere in there where I've got something off. As you guys know, when you have multiple pieces like that, if you have one piece that's off just a tiny bit, it can throw everything else off to where you get to the end, you've got issues. But so far so good. So both the sponson cabins are done. The hull is done, the sides, I've covered pretty much all that. So now we're just finishing up on the steerage assembly. And one thing I'm going to do with this build, I did some research, and there are two tanks that are noted. One's a lot more popular than the other. The most popular tank of these from the first battle was called Dracula, and these captains would name their tanks. And the Dracula tank was the one that later in the day had broken all the way through the defenses. It had gone where most of the other tanks had been disabled, whether they broke down, they got stuck in the mud, or they got hit by fire to where, excuse me, where it disabled them. The Dracula tank made it through, broke deep into the trenches there, and was able to drive off and at least disrupt the German forces so that the infantry coming in could move. And that was the whole point of the tank. The tank was never built to fight other tanks. The tank was built to traverse ground, break through barbed wire, cross trenches, and help the infantry push in this stalemate where they'd had so many thousands killed and they hadn't neither side had really budged at all. So I think that's interesting with World War One, where we weren't building tanks to fight other tanks or something. It was the tank in its origin, and I think still a very important part of the tank even today is to help support infantry. But anyway, the one I'm going to preview, this one I'll do later, and that will be Dracula, because Dracula was a female tank. This one I'm going to do, and that's going to be, I'll get the camera right there. It's called Daredevil, and Daredevil, along with two other tanks, went out early in the morning, and I mentioned earlier that it was Floors, Floors and Courcelette, and I think Morrow. I don't have it written down, but there were three towns that were all on a line, and the Germans were entrenched in front of these towns. And to the left, over by the Floors area, that was it used to be a very thick, dense forest, which of course with bombing and such kind of eradicated it. But it was early in the morning that three tanks went out, and Daredevil was the first tank to fire on the enemy. And didn't have much choice because they literally came over a ridge, and even though it was just dawn, the Germans saw something out there and opened fire with a lot of heavy barrage of fire. So Daredevil fired a few times with the naval guns. They call them 6-pounders. I was calling them Vickers earlier. They're not. They're just naval 6-pounders is what they're called. The Vickers are the machine guns. And so, yeah, I made a mistake there in my labeling. Here's a without focus. That's one of the Vickers machine guns. So anyway, Daredevil drew first blood, and they call it the first to fire in anger is how they pronounce it. How they phrase it. First to fire in anger. So anyway, Daredevil fired. So I'm going to base mine on the Daredevil tank, and I even found the number for the tank. It's 543. So I'm going to have the number put on the side. I'm going to put Daredevil on it somewhere, and we're going to give a little ode to that tank for being the first out there to fire a shot. So anyway, that's what I got right now, guys. Again, steerage assembly coming along well, and that'll all be done here shortly, and then we'll look at getting it all put together, and then we'll go about our painting process, diorama and such. So thanks everybody for sticking with me. This has been a fun build, a great series, and I appreciate all my subscribers and friends out there. You guys take care. You have a great weekend. This is Hinterland Customs signing out.